I was forced into this online business world 14 years ago. The doctors, they put me on a disability pension because of my neck. Newly married, new kids on the way, and thinking, oh, crap, what am I going to do to provide and support this family?
Yeah.
So I turned to the world of online business. So I saw that as a blessing in disguise. But what I've come to realize now that essentially it's the same with God. With our business is we don't have a 9 to 5 gig. Like the Western society says we've got to have our box to do this, a box to do that, and have it all can't pronounce the word. Broken up into different compartments. I don't see it that way. I see that the work-life balance, if you will. I think that's a bit of a myth too, but
Sure.
the work-life balance, if you will, it's an everything in between gig. Like
Mhm.
especially like the laptop lifestyle. I don't have a structured 9 to 5 gig. What I do have is I have a business that operates between the hospital visits, between the travel, between the school runs, between the sporting events, between everything gig, and God is amongst everything too.
Hey, this is a quick shout out from one of our awesome sponsors. Check this out. Thank you to Tracy down at Tranquil Turtle Massage in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Look, my wife and I, we see Tracy and her team every single month for couples massage, and it is the best thing. Tracy is a master massage specialist and a Hanu Ashiatsu trainer. You need to reach out to Tracy and her team. Make sure that you tell them that I sent you, and you'll get 25 bucks off your next massage. Also, while you're there, check out CDA Brows, Body, and Ink. Make sure to tell Tracy that I sent you, and you'll save 100 bucks on your next tattoo, brows, and plasma tightening services. Jeff, you're a husband, you're a dad, you're an entrepreneur, coach, author, you're the host of the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Show, you're a thought leader, speaker, online church planter, and so much more, man. Thank you for your time, dude. I appreciate it.
I think I'll have to put another hat on, will I? Wear a
Come
suit.
on. Come on, man. Thank you so much for taking
Oh,
time, man. I
man.
appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for bringing me on the show.
Yeah, I like to kick the show off by going back a bit. Like, where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up in Central West New South Wales, a
Okay.
little place called Cowra. Its population probably about 9,000 people. So I grew out in the West, in the rural sort of area, growing up in horse studs,
Nice.
and basically left school at year 9, working on cattle stations and horse studs for my early 20s.
Okay. Wow, man, what interesting life. And you mentioned me kind of in the pre-talk. You and I had chatted, but you said you went from atheist to online church planter. Now that in itself is a crazy headline by itself. But like, what was life like while you were an atheist compared to what your life is now with Jesus?
Ah, powerful question. Uh, Dark and light is probably the short answer for that. But
Yeah.
so yeah, 10 years ago, I tried to kill myself,
Wow.
and got to a point in my life where I just tried everything the world had to offer, and felt like such a loser, felt so hopeless. And newly married, first 2 kids we had Harrison, who was 2, Lachlan, who was like 4 months old. We'd moved in the state, 6 months prior to this to have a fresh start, but we brought all of our baggage with us, not
Mhm.
realizing.
Yep.
And I was on the verge of probably bankruptcy, divorce. Just I suffer from chronic pain as well because I had a horse jump in my neck when I was 26.
Whoa.
And I just everything came to a point, and I just thought to myself that the world would probably be better off without me. The family would probably be better off without me.
Mhm.
And so I had that pit of despair and just that hopelessness of it all. And I reached out to my business coach at the time, Celine, and I just unloaded. I just shared with her what's going on. And she said, right, I got to introduce you to my good friend Tim. Tim being the senior pastor of our local church. And basically my introduction to Christ was through, ground level discipleship right then and there. And I actually said to Tim, I said, I don't know much about this Christianity thing, but I'm willing and I'm open to explore it.
Sure.
I'll freely admit, like I am an atheist, but I'm ignorant and probably very naive because I grew up in an atheistic household.
Mhm.
My dad to this day is still an atheist, but I was that kid that was sent to school with a note saying that my child is not to attend anything to do with religion or scripture.
Mhm.
So whenever that was going on in school back in Australia, we still had that going in our schools back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Whenever that was going on, I basically had to go sit outside out the classroom. So
Wow.
yeah.
Man, what a crazy moment for you to step into that. And I think it's so true. It's such a good testimony there of that people don't come to know Jesus through the people standing on the corner saying you're going to hell, right? Like people come to know Jesus through the relationship of just being
Amen.
real, right?
Yeah.
People make Jesus weird, and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be that way. And
Yeah.
it's just interesting. You know, I've gone to 2 churches out where I live at, and I noticed in the last year that they started doing these flaggers up in the front of the church for some reason. They have got flaggers during worship, and they're waving these big old flags. It annoys the heck out of me. It distracts
The
me
show.
from right.
The
And I'm like,
show. Yeah.
it totally for show, man. I'm like, if I'm new to the church and I want to find out who this Jesus guy is, and I walk into that church, I'm like, this is weird, man. I'm out of here. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
what a cool relationship or testimony that you have, though, that from the ground up level, just an introduction of a relationship that got you to know Jesus, man. That's so cool.
Yeah. No, I'm very grateful for my mentor, Tim. You know, he's 30, 40 years as a church planner in that space, and he's got a lot of wisdom in that space. And yeah, like essentially what Tim sort of describes and what I've come to realize myself is that the model for the Western church is backwards. We
Yeah.
need to flip it on its head and
Mm.
start with discipleship.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, I 100%, man. Same. You know, for me, I grew up going to church, but I didn't have that relationship. It was just there because I had to go because my parents, etc. You know, and things like that. And I walked away for a really long time. Came from a crazy childhood, and it was relationships that brought me back to
Mhm.
Jesus. So, man, and
Mhm.
it's such a cool thing. Now, you've planted a church called Today's Discipleship Community, man. How did all this come together? And what can folks learn from being part of this community, man? How can they join it? Because this is awesome. I joined the Facebook group where this is at. Super excited to learn more. And you're just doing some powerful things there, man.
Thank you. Well, yeah, God's definitely working through us, and it's new paradigm thinking. So we're definitely copying some flack from either side, you know, because we're challenging the status quo. But where
Sure.
it came about was this is so as I've gone into my early days of my faith, I came to faith very early on. I got baptized, you know, in that journey about 6 weeks into discovery of Christ.
Mm.
Uh, you know, I went on a mission trip to India like 6 months after that, you know, and then inside of that journey, I'm also I enrolled into a 2-year internship with our local church to just get right into the spiritual disciplines and the spiritual health of it all, and
Yeah.
just learn, you know, aspects about ministry. And back then, you know, I had a word over me put over my life that I, you know, well, basically a question: had I ever thought about planning a church?
Mm.
And I've struggled with that question for the last 8 years, 9 years, because I knew in my heart that, yeah, I'd love to do something like that, but I knew it wouldn't be in the traditional sense, you know, the bricks and mortar building sense, you know,
Sure.
that type of thing. And so I've been struggling with that, you know, for the last 8 years. And then 4 months ago, 5 months ago, just trying to think of the timeline now. So about 4 months ago, our pastor had just come over from America. They went to a church planning conference called Exponential, come back and shared all the amazing stories. And one of the stories that they shared in that was a guy who had started an online church in America. And my heart just jumped out of my chest. And, you know, being an online influencer, and I've just, you know, I basically felt God said, this is what I've been preparing you for,
Oh,
you
come
know,
on.
to go and start an online church. And so I just it was a real calling. Like
Mm.
it was something that I just couldn't put down. It's like I'm a pretty busy guy myself, and wanting to start a church, like I needed to do that like a hole in the head.
Mm.
Like I didn't want to do this, I didn't need to
Sure.
do this, but
Yeah.
I felt called to do it. So we started only about 3 months ago, and in 3 months we're in 8 countries. We've got over 70 members in the group. That's not what I'm worried. You know, that's not the KPI that I'm counting. The KPI that we're counting is, you know, how many people are we actually discipling? You know, being
Yeah.
disciple, and who are we discipling? So, I
Mm.
would say we've got 3 small groups now actively running. I'd say we're probably in those. We're probably, you know, out of the 70, there would be 42 off the top of my head that we're actively discipling. We've
Wow.
got we've got first 2 self-professed atheists on the journey, you know, coming to explore Christ.
Yeah.
We just had our first person last night actually said that they want to get baptized. So we
Come
got our
on.
first online baptism happening already.
Come on. That is awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love watching people get baptized, man. It's you know, I gotta
Yeah.
have the tissue next to me. My eyes are getting a little watery, you know, like that. I
Yeah.
love watching people getting baptized.
I'm the guy who was the guy, you know, when I got married, I was the one was a sobbing mess. I was the one that was crying, not my wife.
Sure.
You know, I had the tissues. So yeah, I get pretty emotional about it.
Man, what a cool thing, dude. I mean, faith, entrepreneurship, man, and just being a dad, like such a cool combination of things. But like so many entrepreneurs, especially dads, struggle with finding time with their families. And for you,
Yeah.
like what advice do you give to dads who want to integrate their faith into their business practices, but then still be present with their family?
Yeah, great question. So I was forced into this online business world. Basically, 14 years ago, the doctors, they put me on a disability pension because of my neck,
Mm,
so yeah, newly married, new kids on the way. I'm thinking, oh crap, what am I going to do to provide and support this family?
yeah,
So I turned to the world of online business. So I saw that as a blessing in disguise. But what I've come to realize now that essentially it's the same with God. With our business is we don't have a 9 to 5 gig. Like the Western society says, we've got to have our box to do this, our box to do that, and have it all can't pronounce the word, broken up into different compartments.
yep,
And I don't see it that way. I see that the work-life balance, if you will. I think that's a bit of a myth too, but
sure.
the work-life balance, if you will, it's an everything in between gig. Like
Mm,
especially like the laptop lifestyle. I don't have a structured 9 to 5 gig. What I do have is I have a business that operates between the hospital visits, between the travel, between the school runs, between the sporting events, between everything gig. And God is amongst everything too. Like
yeah.
he's in us, he's through us, he's in the middle. It's all intertwined. And that's how, like, I actually run 3 pretty big brands, and that's how I'm able to look after the 3 big brands and still have time for the family and presence. And then it's just about making sure my calendar's structured to be able to operate in that space.
Mm. Man, I love that. So good. To be able to, yeah, I like what you said, man. It's myth. It's a myth of this family business sort of time life balance, right? I think it
Right.
all kind of blends together. It's so good. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I
And
love, oh,
just
go ahead.
just on that, sorry.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're just on that, like, one thing that really jumps out for me too is when it is so true. When you find that thing that you love, that you're passionate about, you don't actually work. It's
yeah.
not a job anymore. Like it becomes part of your life.
Hmm.
I love what I do, and I
Yeah,
love helping people come to God and going on that journey. But yeah,
yeah.
like it's a part of our everyday life.
Hmm. Man, I think I'm in one of those situations where, I got laid off from my job 6 months ago in December of last year. And it's been an interesting year. God's taken us through a valley. But
Yeah,
I know that I've never had faith that he wasn't going to provide. He wasn't going to, make it a rough season. Yeah, less income, but my
yeah,
wife and I and kids were like, hey, God, whatever you got planned, we're ready. And I'm ready to step into it. And, I've applied it like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And I'm just
yeah,
starting to think over the last couple months, like maybe God doesn't want me to step into that. Maybe God wants me to actually step foot into what my purpose is. And maybe that
yeah.
purpose is podcasting and coaching and doing
Amen.
online affiliate marketing, right? And that's
Yeah,
my passion. That's what fires me up is when
yeah,
I can
yeah,
go and talk with people, right? And so I'm going, all right, God, what do you got planned for me, right? And so,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
man, as a dad, I just resonate so much with what you are doing right now, man. And it's so cool to hear how
And
you approach that.
thank you. And look, one of the very first things that I ever do with any of our people is we sit down and we work out what's their why. Not why, their personal why,
Right.
not even the why that their people want to do it, but what's their why God wants them to do it, essentially. And it's their heart-centered, purpose-driven life.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we can operate from that heart, then that's where we find our passion, that's where we find our gifts, and that's where we find we can serve the greater good.
Hmm. Yes. So good, dude. I love it. Now, one of the things, the cool thing about being a podcaster, I've done over 500 interviews. Some of my best friends today are people that I've met on a podcast, never met them in person. And now
Love that.
now you just launched this podcast, man, and it's called the Laptop Lifestyle Dad Joe. The first episode, I absolutely love what you did because when I'm coaching students on how to launch podcasts, you did exactly what I tell them. Make
Oh
episode
wow.
one
There you go.
like like episode one should always be like, this is who I am, this is who we're doing, this is what the show's about, this is the journey I'm going to take you on, and this is what you can expect. And I went to listen to first episode and you just nailed it. I mean, I was like, dude, this is the best episode I've heard in a long time, man. So for those who don't know about your podcast, like what's this thing about? Why did you decide to start this thing, man?
Yeah, well, that's funny. It's uncanny that you say that I've ticked all the boxes because I've done no formal training in podcasting whatsoever.
I love it, dude.
I'm a student of marketing for the last 20 odd years, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand a thing about starting with the why, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. So what was the question again? I got sidetracked
Oh
there.
no, I'm just always curious, like, why did you decide to start this podcast, and who is this podcast for, man?
Yeah. So why did I start? Well, at the moment, so the intention of the podcast is to empower and equip people to fall in love with leveraging AI
Mm,
and the social selling space. So it came off the back of me being a speaker for the AI symposium for the LA Tribune, sponsored by the LA Tribune.
cool.
So I got the opportunity to be one of the main speakers of that, and I just loved what Tom has put together with the AI symposium to bring it all together to empower and equip people to learn how to master and leverage AI.
Mm,
And that's what I was already doing with my boot camps. And, so it just made the natural sense, the natural progression to, go and start interviewing people in this space to be able to share their stories and tips and strategies. I'm a big believer of the givers community.
mhm.
Like we add value to our people, and when we add value, it's sort of like we go through the sales process of value, 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 value. So when we do ask for something, we're asking from that gratitude. We're asking from transformation. Like they've already got some similar results already, rather than asking from something that's a empty cup.
Yeah.
Something, yeah, the scarcity sort of lack mindset, asking from abundance. So I'm just in this space, creating a community to be able to serve them, to learn how to master the social selling game, attraction marketing.
Mhm.
And it came from the heart too of serving frustrated affiliate and network marketers, like the home-based business models and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, it's spilt over to wanting to serve aspiring coaches too, and seasoned pros, in the network marketing game. Like
Mm.
there's this real transition happening from, let's call it old school to new school. It's been happening for about a decade, but I think we're just hitting that crux tipping point.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people out there struggling to master the online attraction, organic social selling game.
Mhm.
And I've been one of the few there that have been able to, right time, right place, and just step into it and serve. And I've cracked the code in a way, like I personally recruited over 200 complete strangers
Wow.
into our travel club in the last 6 months, and I've just been able to help people replicate
Come on.
that system. So the podcast was just the next thing of me stepping up and shining, and that evolution of how can I serve a bigger, wider community and go from good to great.
Mm. Man, I love it, dude. And you said your first episode dropped in Feb. No, sorry. When did you drop your first episode? You just recently, right?
About 10 days ago.
10 days ago. Yeah, I was thinking of another one. Yeah, 10 days ago. So you're early on to this podcast journey, but I think you mentioned it on the first episode that I was listening to, like you've already got a stacked list of people that are kind of booked to be guests on your show. How would you
Yeah,
say podcasting has helped you in your business?
it's open doors.
Mm,
It's collaborative
yeah.
projects, right? So, like I've had some of the podcast interviews that I've already done and brought them in to do masterclasses to our community.
Yeah.
And then now what it's doing is it's opening doors for me to connect with awesome people like you,
Mm,
through for referrals and relationship. And that's what I'm all about. Social selling, another term for it could be is just relationship building,
yep.
and just getting amazing connections, and doors are opening up left, right, and center. Like so, I've just been brought into the inner circle with the LA Podcast Tribune Network,
Come on.
and that's been like been a prayer being hugely answered. So like I've always had a heart, even since like I was 15, to be in the public speaking arena, like doing all of those sort of things. But life knocks you about a bit, and you go through the school of hard lessons,
Mhm.
and then that sort of dream gets diminished, and you're sort of like, oh well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And so I let it go, and then all of a sudden, now stepping into this journey, like I've started doing the podcast interviews about 3 months ago, and so I've built up a bank, and now that through those collaborative projects and through that power of connection and prayer,
Yeah.
doors are opening up.
Mm. Yeah, I did. It's so good. So many collaborations and partnerships of relationship have been built through podcasting for me. And I look at it almost to a slightly different idea of, for me, it's legacy. Like I wish that I could go back 3, 4
Mm,
generations deep and hear my great grandfather's voice and hear his story from
yeah,
him.
yeah.
And I can't do that, but I can do that for 3, 4 generations deep. They go, man, great grandpa Erik was a bad mamma jamma and he survived through some stuff, right? Like he fought for us. Like that's what I look at podcasts. And it's a legacy
Mm,
thing for me, man. Um, and I
yeah, man,
love
I
that.
get that.
What's that?
I get that, and I can see the impact of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I don't know. I just looked at it a little bit different. I was like, man, I wish that I could do that. And my son, who's 11, got to interview my grandma who just turned 90, and he
Mm,
interviewed her a couple years ago on FaceTime. And we like gave her instructions. We bought her an iPad. We said, just look in this camera, we'll turn it on. And he was in Idaho and she's in Washington, and he asked her questions I didn't even know, and
yeah,
he
yeah,
he
right.
did a great job. And I was like, man,
That's
we're just
that's
record this thing. It was so cool.
that's interesting. I got three boys. I got 12, 11, and 8.
Yeah,
And my 12-year-old's got a heart to be like Mr. Beast. He wants to be a YouTuber. So
nice. Yeah, that's
that
awesome.
just sparked up an idea for me.
Come on, that's so cool, man. I want to jump in real quick. You also, like, on top of your podcast, you've got a book, Social Selling and AI Mastery for Network Marketers. It's available right now. People can go in and buy that thing. When they get into that book, like, what are they going to discover without giving it away, obviously? But what are some of the things that they're going to learn out of that?
Yeah, cool. So what I actually did was I got ChatGPT to help me write the book in 4 hours.
Nice. Okay.
So I got so I've been doing these free boot camps.
Mhm.
So teaching people how to, set up their social selling system, how to start to develop their personal brand, and how to start to nail their niche and master their message, and create a community around them.
Mhm.
So what I did was I got all the transcribes from my previous boot camps, uploaded that up to Chatty, and got it to write me a book.
Come
And
on.
so we took the boot camp and we put it into a book format. So like things are straight away, starting with why, nailing your niche, mastering your message, how to leverage the AI world and the content, creation tools that we have now, and giving them some sort of, actionable steps in each chapter, and basically bringing in, our caffeinated kangaroo brand into the mix of it all with all these tips and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
it took a few revisions to get it right, and making sure that it spoke in my tone and make sure it was my IP. And, so when I say I got ChatGPT to write a book in 4 hours, it's like I got it to help me leverage
Sure.
to write a book in 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so it's basically set up for, frustrated sort of newbie sort of affiliate network marketers,
Mhm.
to start to learn how to, essentially everything that I do, it comes down to three categories: how to build your personal brand, how to grow a niche community to set you up as the authority, and how to monetize that. A lot
Mm.
of people talk about just growing community, but they don't teach the monetize part. And
Right.
so we're all about teaching you how to create a proven, predictable, and profitable customer value journey for your business. And so we unpack that in depth in the book.
Come on. That, man, it's so good. Like, I think that's been one thing that I've done affiliate marketing over the years. I've got a couple good wins, and then it's not here. It's
Yeah, yeah,
this inconsistent, right? And there's a lot of fluff out in the internet of saying, do this and you'll be a millionaire, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
all that. Like people will struggle with that. But like, what's step one for someone who wants to get into that laptop lifestyle where they just know that, yep, this is a legit program? Like, what's step one for them to really step into that and start making some money?
Yeah, good question. So how to develop your personal brand. Like,
Mm,
there's a lot of affiliates out there, and especially let's use the multi-level marketing companies for a second. Like, they're all great companies. They're all great opportunities,
yeah.
great products. But what I've seen time and time again is they become essentially lost in the corporate drumbeat. They
Mm,
they just become another cog in the engine. They become a brand ambassador, if you will. You
mhm.
know,
Yep.
and that's very hard to compete in that space, especially when you've got overlapping sort of, influences and circles, right? To stand out, and you're all sort of, going for the same shark, if you will. You're also going for the same fish.
Hmm.
And so what makes you different? What makes you unique?
Yeah.
Well, it's our own voice, it's our own stories, it's our own pain, and it's our own personal brand.
Hmm.
So that's where we start. We teach people how to develop their personal brand and go into the fundamental building blocks. Like,
Hmm.
I'm talking about going down to the bare bone basics. What
Yeah.
is your mission statement? What's your vision statement? What's your core
Mm.
values? What makes you unique? What's your story? And like your hero's journey story. Why would I go to Erik versus go to Joe? Like, how can my story express elements that people can relate, connect, and resonate with?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, I'm always looking for ways to people to straight away from that first initial impact, how can we have a heart-to-heart connection?
Mm.
And when you build that, you start to build relationship. You get people to go through the know, like, and trust you. And I would say go deeper that it's relate and resonate. And then it's just finding those connection points and finding people that you who are like you
Yeah.
and who you like them.
Mm.
And so it's just understanding the core fundamental building blocks of relationship, of sales, of marketing, and going through. And then all we just use now, these are just pieces of the puzzle. So we work out our own why. What's our why?
Mhm.
What's your why? Like, why would you want to do business with me, and how can I help you? Like, what's in it for you?
Yeah.
And because, like, at the end of the day, it's clear that we're all selling one thing. Doesn't matter whether it's Jesus, whether it's the laptop lifestyle, whether it's ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
We're all selling transformation.
Mhm.
So if we understand that, we can build a brand around that. We can articulate our message around that. And then the next step here is what makes you unique. Well, then that's nailing your niche.
Mhm.
Go and find your ideal audience that you can serve, your community that loves you, and you can serve them in a powerful way because of the trials and the tribulations, the pain, the challenges, and everything that you've been through already.
Mhm.
Because all we are at the end of the day is we're just all someone's guide.
Yes.
The only difference between you and I in podcasting is you've got 500 episodes under your belt. So you're a master at this, and I can learn a thing or two from you. So you're a guide.
Yeah.
But the only difference between you and I, and say maybe the travel space or the e-commerce space or the digital marketing space is exactly the same thing, just flipped.
Yep.
I've got 1,000 hours in that. So we can all be somebody's guide.
Come on. Oh, so good, dude. We can all be somebody's guide. That is so good, man. Now, I know that you just launched a podcast, but what are you most excited about right now? Maybe it's the podcast, maybe it's something else coming up, but what excites you right now, man?
Look, man, the podcast is just a tool. The book is just a tool.
Yeah.
Man, what excites me is our alumni, our students, their success stories.
Hmm.
Seeing them have breakthrough.
Yeah.
I'm all about the other guy, the little guy too.
Yep.
The little guy who's been, in this space for 5, 6 years, 10 years, had some success, but nothing to write home about. Like, I've got amazing stories like Dave and Jade and, just a couple off the top of my head, that they're now starting to really nail their brand. But what excites me is it's seeing them on fire for them building their community and what they love to do,
Yeah.
creating a business by design, creating a business that's heart-centered and purpose-driven. And what it does is when you get that clarity, and I know this was true for my own story,
Hmm.
is it helps us get us out of our own way. It helps us
Hmm.
get out of our heads and get into our hearts and really serve the greater good, the kingdom.
Yeah.
And that excites me more. Seeing people
Yeah.
break.
Come on, man. That's so good, dude. I absolutely, man, this has been such an awesome conversation. I love to finish my show with a fun question. I'm a music guy. So that's a question like, what kind of music do you listen to? Or do you have a favorite band that you like to listen to?
Yeah, great question. So it's very mixed. Grew up around country music, so gotta love the OGs with Garth Brooks and Chris Ledoux and George
Yeah.
Strait and all
Yeah.
those. But right now, in this current day, I just I love our worship music.
Mm.
Hillsong and Bethel and all of that sort of thing. Just real songs that just sort of help you connect to God.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, for sure. My first country concert was Kenny Chesney, probably one of the best concerts I've
Yeah,
been to. It was awesome. I've
yeah.
been to probably 175 plus concerts. I was in the music business for a while and
Yeah,
and
wow.
but
My,
yeah,
my
Kenny Chesney was one of those, man, that first concert I went to and I was like, dude, this guy rocks, man. I like enjoyed myself. It was so much fun, man. So
my first one was Alan Jackson.
really,
Yeah,
okay, come on.
yeah. Good AJ.
That is awesome, man. Well, Jeff, you're an absolute world changer, man. God's using you to just make a huge impact in the world, man. Not only your family, but businesses and people that are connecting with you through your course, through your alumni, through your podcast, through your book, man. You are doing some amazing stuff. I just want to say thank you for your time, dude, and know that you are an absolute world changer, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you for the opportunity.
Hey, if you've ever thought about starting a podcast but unsure where to go, you need to go check out erikallenmedia.com. Click on the resources tab there. I will walk you through how to start, launch, and run a podcast. I've recorded over 500 interviews since 2017, and I want to help you launch your podcast. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you catch every show when I drop them. Thanks again. Keep changing the world.